Historical records confirm multiple cases of white individuals being fully accepted and integrated into Aboriginal tribes through adoption, naming, skill sharing, marriage, and leadership roles, primarily in the 19th century following shipwrecks or escapes, demonstrating Aboriginal hospitality and cultural inclusivity toward outsiders in distress despite colonial conflicts. One of the last recorded instances is that of Narcisse Peltier, a 14-year-old French cabin boy shipwrecked in 1858 off eastern Cape York Peninsula, marooned on Rossell Island before reaching mainland. He was adopted by the Aboriginal people north of Princess Charlotte Bay, learned the language, customs, hunted and lived alongside them. Fully embraced culture for 17 years until forcibly removed in 1875 by Pearling schooner crew. He was returned to France where he struggled to readjust and died in 1894. Other such cases include John Wilson, known as Bunboe, arrived in Sydney as a convict on the First Fleet in 1788, emancipated in 1795, lived with the Derrick people until 1797, accepted through initiation with scars, learned language, wore kangaroo skin cloak, died from spear wound after appropriating a woman. William Buckley escaped Port Phillip in 1803, adopted by Wotherong as reincarnated spirit Marangurk, learned customs, married, became Ngurungita, lived 32 years until 1835, died 1856. Thomas Pamphlet, John Finnegan, and Richard Parsons, castaways in 1823, lived with Kabi Kabi for 7 months, learned food gathering and language until rescued. John Graham escaped Moreton Bay in 1827, adopted by various tribes, helped find Eliza Fraser in 1836, returned to society. James Davis escaped Moreton Bay in 1829, adopted by Gigubara as Duramboy, lived 14 years, surrendered 1843, died 1889. William Dorley, 4, and John Island, 17, survived Charles Eden Wreck in 1834, adopted by Miriam family for 2 years until rescued 1836. Barbara Thompson shipwrecked 1844 near Fraser Island, adopted by Corareg as Geome, lived 5 years until rescued 1849, died 1873. James Morrill shipwrecked 1846 on Peruvian, adopted by Bindle, learned 8 languages, lived 17 years until 1863, died 1865. Later beginning in the late 19th century and solidified by the early 20th century, there was a change from full tribal acceptance to assignment of skin names for non-Indigenous outsiders due to government policies that eroded tribal autonomy. Government protection and assimilation policies from the late 19th century, starting with Victoria's 1869 and 1886 legislation and expanding nationwide, dismantled autonomy and ended full acceptance by restricting decisions and enforcing segregation, while skin name assignments evolved as a symbolic tool from mid-20th century post-1960s reforms for interactions without complete membership. There are documented examples since 1900 of white Australians being assigned skin names by communities as a mechanism to facilitate social interactions within kinship systems. Modern examples include ongoing assignment of skin names to non-Indigenous for ceremonial adoptions since 1980s. Mary Laughran assigned Napalgeri in 1975 for Walpiri research until 1993. Numerous teachers, linguists, residents given names in Central Australian groups like Arunte since mid-20th century for avoidance rules and roles. Yolngu adopted professionals like doctors since 1980s as kin for consultations. Mwanga and Yamaji assigned names to officers and researchers since 1990s for projects without permanent status. Cape York missionaries and Perlas received names from Utaunganu and Corareg 1980s to 2000s for alliances. That's the historical integrations from full tribal acceptance in cases like Narcisse Peltier and earlier figures to modern skin name assignments driven by colonial policy shifts, highlighting a transition from inclusive adoptions to pragmatic kinship tools without ancestral membership, as evidenced by specific examples and critiques up to 2017.